of course, we hear some technical thing, but we still have a particular week that is dedicated to learning the technical part. But I wanted to give you context to what it really means, right? So that you understand why you are here. So, what exactly does it mean to say um, AI or ML or whatever it is? To the regular man, right? AI is ChatGPT. Is a platform where you can go type something and get result back. Either you are getting an image or you are getting a text back. Let's say, okay, tell me how to break up with my boyfriend. And then you list out how to break up with your boyfriend, and then you say, yeah, I don't like this idea. Okay, I like this idea. But what if I don't do that to him? What if I do this? Right? You are asking the AI to advise you on things like that. But that is how the user uses it, right? As a product manager, the way you think is different. You have to think to understand how to build that AI system for for what are they calling it? For the user to use. In a fun manner, I started building something similar. I know some of us have seen this clip before. Again, OGs, right? Some of us have seen this clip before. So I'm building something simple so that maybe you want to ask question about the course. You remember that I said something, but you're not sure about it. You can basically chat it up. I've been working on it since morning. I'm not done with it. But basically, I mean, how do we come up with these things that people can basically interact with and get value from eventually? That's basically what AI is. That's what we will be learning, not how to write prompts or how to ask him how to become a better. It's not that. So let's talk about a few terms. I won't be defining AI because I believe you should know what it is by now. So, but yeah, when you hear AI, you already know it's basically talking about um, a system that allows you to that that thinks like human. Just think about it that way. It thinks like human. That's why it's AI. We call it artificial intelligence. So it has an intelligence that is not human intelligence. It's crafted from human intelligence. So artificial intelligence. So it has a sense of being able to think like we would as human beings, but with limits, right? With limitations. So now let's talk about machine learning. From the get-go, machine learning is, how do I explain machine learning? So machine learning has been before AI, but now it became a subset of AI because AI became parent. Of course, AI has been for a long time, but the kind of success that we have attained now was not what we had then, right? That's why again I added this guy to the screen. How many of us had laptops like years ago or desktop years ago? You would remember this guy. If you remember this guy, give me a thumbs up. You remember this guy that I'm hovering on? Ah, yes, Joseph remembers it. The paper clip that dances in Microsoft Word and Excel and all of that, right? So, I mean, this is like 20 years ago, before AI even became a boss, right? And what did they basically do with this guy then? What they did is there were patterns that machine could learn from. That's what machine learning is. You have patterns, you have a set of data, and then from that set of data, you set rules that the machine would learn from. So you say, for example, you take granules, right? You take some granules. I will use human example so that it makes sense to you. You take about 10 samples of granules. You take 10 samples uh, of peanuts. You take 10 samples of cashew nuts. You take 10 samples of I don't know what other nuts do we have. Walnuts, right? You put them, all of them are nuts, but you want the computer to be able to recognize which one is which one. So what you do is you probably scan each of the granules you have, so that the computer or the machine will understand what a granite looks like. Once you understand what a granite looks like, you also train it on what a peanut looks like. You also train it on what a walnut looks like. Over time, it starts to understand that this is a granite, based on the patterns that it has captured from the ones you've showed it. Do you understand? So it's basically machine learning based on the data that you've made available to it over time. And then you have deep learning. Deep learning is slightly different from machine learning. It uses neural network. And what is neural network? So our brain as human beings has nodes. I don't know if you guys watch science film movies, but when you watch science movie, you have neurons, right? At least you did biology in school. You have neurons, right? Little chunk of the brain connected to each other. So that's why you have some people that when they have accidents, they will tell you that a left side of their brain or the right side of their brain is affected. So they can't remember things, they can't keep things for long because each node in the brain has a job it does. Some function for motion, like a part of the brain allows you to be able to move your hands, move your legs, right? A part of the brain helps you to keep information. A part of the brain helps you to do X or Y. So which means that people that they do surgery on, they can cut a part of their brain and they will still work fine, right? The same way they brought into machines and they call it deep learning. So the idea is there are nodes. They created different nodes that do specialized items, but then connected it to each other so that they can learn from each other. And over time, they realized that they started becoming self-aware. So if you take if you take this particular guy, let's assume this is a computer, and teach it mathematics, and you take this particular guy and teach it physics, and bring both of them together, right? Connect them together so they have access to each other's brain. Over time, they come together and generate another node, which could be math fix, which means new formulas that have never been formulated before is generated to solve new problem because these two decided to share the idea, right? So that is what new deep learning is, which uses neural network, just like the brain. The only difference is it processes faster. The brain, we have all of it there. For example, when you were young, if you were born in an Igbo land, right, and somehow you were taken away from the Igbo land, and maybe when you were growing up, you spoke a bit of Igbo, and then you were taken away from the Igbo land, you were taken to maybe a Yoruba land, right? Over time, you start to lose the language. Like you start at some point, you will not even be able to hear anything again. Did it mean that that stuff just went off your brain? No, it became, is it docile? They call it. It became, the knowledge is still there, but that part of the brain is not as active as anymore, as before anymore. So what you have or knowledge you have right now is based on what you are seeing more frequently. The difference between that and deep learning is every single node in a neural network for deep learning is active, always active. So the more it learns, the better it gets, basically, right? And then we have large language models. If you hear LLMs, at first when I started hearing LLMs, I was scared because it sounded like something developers alone needs to learn. When you hear LLM, just think of a system that can understand languages, right? You know, in English, you learn figure of speech, part of speech, syllables, blah, blah, blah. A system that is built to understand all languages so that when you have an idea, like for example, when I have my company, all the information about my company, if I have it in Arabic, right? And I bring it to it, I say, hey, this is information about my company. It can consume that information, learn it, and then give answer in any language I need it to be that is constructing it for any other user. So it's basically like think of it like a library of languages, right? It understands every language, the syllables, it can answer questions, it can reply you, it can understand if you talk to it without even putting it into, without plugging any data into it. That's what we call an LLM. That's why we call them large language models, right? They are, think of it like your language teacher. They understand everything regarding a language. So if you speak a language to them, they can reply back to you, right? Not because they have any other knowledge, but because they can interpret what you are saying, and because they can interpret it, they can reply you. So that's why sometimes when you chat, it will tell you, I don't know this, I know this, right? I know that. So an LLM can be able to interact with you even though it doesn't have certain knowledge. So when you chat with ChatGPT or Claude or any of these tools, right? What you are chatting with is the LLM interface. But behind that LLM interface, there's a data set that allows you to interact with it. So LLM itself does not have data other than language models. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys. I hope it does, right? So that's LLMs. And then you have generative AI. Basically, any AI you can chat with that will give you an answer is called a generative AI. And then foundation models. Foundation models are basically models just like LLMs that is designed basically for language. Foundational model can be designed for specific things as well. You can design a model that basically all it does in his life is to calculate maths. Right? I've seen some crazy models. Right. So they call them foundational model. Of course, you can have different type of that, but it's like a layer for what you want to do. All right. So this part you would probably read it up yourself, but I'm just basically telling you what each company's role is in the AI space. Of course, the biggest of them all is NVIDIA. If you are talking to you and say, okay, which company is driving the AI? By the way, I'm not just mentioning company's name for fun. I'm mentioning it to you so that you understand the players in your industry, people that are making things possible in the industry that you are, right? So why am I always talking about Microsoft, Google? Because they own the future of tech. NVIDIA, OpenAI, there's one I didn't had, Anthropic, and many more like that, right? These guys are the one defining the moment, basically, in the AI space. So I wrote down a bit of what they do, basically. Before we have FAANG. FAANG is an acronym for a list of companies that were making the world a better place, right? But now they call them Mango, right? Mango meaning Meta, Anthropic, Nvidia, Google, and OpenAI. Those 5 companies are the legend now. Like they are the top 5 globally when it comes to companies that are contributing to the future of tech. So in case you hear somebody say, "Oh, I want to work at Mango," yeah, they don't mean they want to work under the tree. They mean they want to work in one of these 3 companies, right? Because they're the one. It's a like if you search online, you type Mango, right? I hope it doesn't. I hope it doesn't bring Mango for me. Let me add company so it doesn't bring Mango for me. All right. So you see mangoes, right? It shows the list of God, I beg you. Sorry, I wrote mango. Uh okay. So like I said, it was FAANG before, and FAANG is a term that we use to represent top companies that are actually booming. But now we have mangoes. So mangoes is Meta, Anthropic, Nvidia, Google, and OpenAI, as I've mentioned earlier. SpaceX was added recently because when he got the acquisition and all the plenty things, they added SpaceX because he's making a lot of money from it. Anyway, that's by the way. So you have Mango or Mangoes are the top companies. And why am I mentioning this? So that you keep your eye on them, right? If you can learn more about them. In fact, most times in interview, all I have to do is just talk to interviewers about what I know about these people, right? And these people control what companies do, right? Your CEO, especially if they're interested in AI, they're also watching them. So you should watch them as well. All right. So how does LLMs work? Because LLM is the interface. So think of, I will still explain a bit later. In the old systems that we build, for example, in this particular website that I built, there's usually a front end and a back end. Front end is what you can see, and the back end is what happens on the background. I'll still explain a bit on that. With AI, LLM is what interacts with the customer. So how do they really work? I'll mention 3 things and then help you understand what those 3 things do and how they help us. So there's something called token. Most of us probably have heard about it. Oh, my token has finished. Oh, my token has finished. Oh, it's using too much token. Blah, blah, blah. So what exactly is token? Token is like a word. It's just like you are saying that when we're young, we do something like write an essay of 500 words, right? And then how do we know 500 words? each word has to make sense. It has to be represent something, right? With LLMs, they don't use words as such. Each word is around 0.75, ideally. Some words can be less than that. Some words can be more than that. So, like I said, the word product manager means 2 token. So when you are typing a pistol to your AI, and that's why your token used to finish on time. When you are typing a piece two and not giving the AI enough context and it keeps asking you question, you ask the AI question. Both of you are asking each other, asking. The more you do that, you are wasting money. You are wasting money, and before you know it, your balance have read, right? So token, LLMs work with token, right? You really work with token, and if you don't know how to use them, you would end up like getting red. For those of us that pay for AI, we understand what red means. Like by the time you look at your budget at the end of the month, your like $500 have gone, and it's just AI you are talking to. So again, that balance is very, very essential. So embeddings are so let me start with vectors, right? So when you type words into AI now, AI then converts those words into vectors. Some people call it vectors, and then group of vectors are basically your embeddings. They are like I don't want to give this example that is coming to my head, but some of us have computer science background, and you would understand when I say there's something called machine language, where we have 101010, or when you are looking at those Aka movie, and then it's showing 101010 with black background, right? And they say, oh, that's what computer understands. So think of if that is what computer understand, what AI systems understands are embeddings, right? So it breaks down that your word into vectors, and then vectors grouped together are called embeddings. Yeah, a bit technical stuff, right? But you would get it at the end of the day. So when they say, okay, I even added it here, vectors, but group of vectors are the embeddings. I don't know why they. So when you see it, it breaks it down. They look like numbers, but yeah, they are basically vectors at the end of the day. Then we have transformers. Transformers are, how do I explain transformers? So think of it now. Now you have a lot of vectors or embeddings in your DB. Now, what transformer does is it looks through when you ask who am I, or you ask who is Nkechi. When you ask AI who is Nkechi, AI now goes into the DB. Transformer in this case now look for every occurrence of Nkechi, every occurrence of who, every occurrence of is, and then brings all the results together. And then when it brings all the results together, because it's a language model, it tries to make sense of it. After making sense of it, then it replies back to you. So transformer is that particular system that can actually go get all the necessary information and then bring them back together. So that's why to AI understands that, or LLMs understands that you are stupid is not the same as you are stupid. You are, stupid, right? He understands that there's a common mistake. I'm trying to look at for the statement that makes more sense. Basically, he understands the impact of punctuations. He understands the impact, and that's why you notice it. If he doesn't know which punctuation to use, to add a dash, because you understand the importance of silence to human, because it has checked across. He has seen that okay, there are multiple factors where Nkechi could actually exist. So when you say who is Nkechi, he finds everything about Nkechi, and then sometimes he asks you, okay, I think I found too many Nkechi. Which Nkechi are you talking about? Say, okay, I'm talking about Nkechi. I think it's Nkechi Moses. Say Nkechi Moses. Say, oh no, I beg. I'm not talking about Nkechi Moses. And then you and it to continue. And at the end of the day, the $500 have disappeared. Right? So again, why am I emphasizing on this? I would point it out very soon, because the context you give to your AI matters a lot. I'll still talk about it in the deeper class that we have. So, as I said, you will not train models. Of course, that's not your job. But what you will do, you have to choose, right? Your developers will come to you and say, which one do you think we should use? Should we use ChatGPT, or should we use Claude, or should we use Gemini, right? Or I mean, which one should we use, right? So which is why we're learning this. Number one, understand that context window is so what exactly is context windows? Context window is like think of it like that space that your LLM has to actually understand what you're trying to say, right? Context window for ChatGPT is 128K, and currently Gemini has the largest, and that's why when you chat with Gemini, sometimes you feel like he understands you, right? You feel like he understands you, right? Compared to others. Others, yes, they get it. They get the job done, but sometimes they take time to understand, right? Because their context window is actually a bit low, right? And then the input cost, as you can see, per 1 million token, you're already spending $2. So the more you do cheat chats, like I said, your money is going, right? And Gemini has to be the cheapest one among the top guys. There are still free ones, like for example, open code. I use open code for writing my application. Anti-graffiti, which is the Google's ID, also basically is pretty much free. You have Codex as well, which is also free. But most of these platforms actually have their own internal model as well. But in addition, all of them also have these four, because these four are like the smartest, built by, again, the mangoes. Do you understand why I told you about the mangoes now? They are built by the mangoes. Claude is built by Anti-Graffiti. ChatGPT is built by OpenAI. Gemini is built by Google. Uh, Llama is built by Meta, right? Like that, like that, like that. All right. So each of them also have their biggest strength, right? Claude, if you need to think very deep, Claude is your guy. If you need somebody to do things that requires, like you need your AI to have sense, Claude is your guy. Everybody in the whole space agrees that Claude is the smartest of all of them, right? So he can reason fast, and also if you need to perform multiple tasks. I'll still talk about AI agents before we end. I know this is a lot, but I need to actually create this background, and I need you guys to probably watch this over and over before class so that you can write down questions for me, maybe for next class before we start talking about business metrics. All right, then for all of them, I think over time, what you should think about when you want to choose. This is just advice, by the way, advice on what to do. This might change. Like these guys, they improve their system over time. So tomorrow, the context for Claude might not be 200K again. It might have increased, right? So it's tentative number as of today. Now, how do we choose? If a developer comes to you and say, how do we choose? You ask yourself, what exactly are we trying to do? What are we trying to do, right? Are we trying to get the fastest response at a lower cost? Do we want our customers to get response as fast as possible without spending a lot of money? Will the customers be uploading documents, scanning images, uploading images, and all of that? Is privacy really a thing? Because if you use Meta, just forget your privacy. Llama is basically free. As you can see, it's open source, basically free. If you are self-hosting it, yes, you pay a measly $0.3. Like you will not even know that you are paying money, right? But you already know that you are giving them your life. Like, take my life, right? So Meta is free, but when it comes to security, they own it. They own everything about you, and it's part of your term at their term and condition. They will slightly tell you, just know that in case your data can fall in the hands of an advertiser, regardless, there's nothing you can do about it. All right, and that's why, of course, I know some of us have thought about it, and that's why when you are just talking to your friend about the fact that you want to buy Benz GLE or GLK, all of a sudden, when you scroll on your Instagram, you are just seeing GLK. Like, why? I did not search for it. I just spoke to somebody beside me, and boom, that's all they are showing me. It's because, let's not say it with all our mouths. All right, so these are things that you consider when you are trying to choose the right model for your business. Are we building something like YouTube? Are we building something like, do you understand? Like that, like that, like that. All right, so there's something we call RAG as well. RAG is retriever augmented generation. Again, retriever augmented generation. What exactly is retriever augmented generation? So we know what LLMs are. We know that if we chat our chat bots like ChatGPT, Gemini, all these guys, if you tell them who is the president of Nigeria, they will go and search and give you the answer. However, what if you have an information that you don't want to go public? You don't want to put it on public space. Or you want to build something like ChatGPT, but you want it to only answer questions that concerns your company. So which means you want to give it the database. Remember what I said about LLMs? LLMs are ideally a language model. They don't have knowledge. They don't know who your president is, right? What makes ChatGPT work is because behind the LLM, there's a set of data, which you call data sets, that it can go to confirm that, hey, somebody is asking me who is their president, oh, and then that data set tells them, oh, their president is, do you understand, is Tinubu, and they say, okay, oh, Tinubu, and then it comes to you and say the president is Tinubu. Now, what if you don't want to use that public one? You want to create one for your company, right? Your company has a lot of problems that you have solved in the past. You have context. Let's assume a bank, right? A bank wants to build something like paperclip here that customers can go and chat and say, hey, and when customers chat it up, they only need it to be able to reply what is concerning their company. They don't want you to come and tell them who is the president of Nigeria, and you say, oh, the president of Nigeria is. They don't want you to go into politics before somebody go and screenshot and say, oh, it is Wema Bank that says that we should go and vote for Tinubu, and then you go and burn Wema Bank down, right? Or things like that. So that is what RAG does. So RAG system is that system that allows you to build certain data or train your LLM with a data set that ideally is restricted to a particular date or time or to a particular context, like my company data alone, right? Something like that. So how does it work? You embed your document. I've said the most important thing is you have to feed it that information. Depending on how you create it, it could be PDFs, it could be tickets, it could be anything that you worked on in the past. You give it access to it, and then once you give access to it, it converts it to vectors. Remember, embeddings, right? It converts it into vectors and embeddings, which means that now the LLM can understand it, can digest it. If a customer asks something that what does the company do, you can go and research it and then give it an answer, right? And then basically that's what happened. I've explained this already that usually LLMs it receives the chunk after it retrieves the chunk, it makes sense of it. That's what it means that argument the prompt. It makes sense of it and then return it back to the customer as response. All right, so this is basically what LLMs are. And then so let me now explain a bit what prompt engineering, what should consider when we use prompts as again, I won't repeat this again because we'll be using AI a lot. That's why I'm taking time to explain some of these terms. So please learn them, adapt them, because you even do a test afterwards. So learn them, adapt them, let it grow inside you. All right. So LLM's prompt is not a command; it's a context injection. Remember what I said about context? Is you just telling the LLM what you want it to know about the question you are asking. For example, I can ask, who is the real president of Nigeria? If I say that, of course, it will bring Tinubu for me. But if I come and say, okay, when I mean real, I mean, who is that person that Nigerians would rather have as their president? You know, that's what I mean as real. That way, you've given it context on what to search. Instead of you saying who is president of Nigeria, and then it brings Tinubu, and then you say, no, it can't be Tinubu. I mean, but it's Tinubu that is the president of Nigeria. You know, I'm giving this example so that you understand how this works. Or he says, who is the president of the US? Says Donald Trump. Say, no, it can't be Donald Trump. It's not, people do not like him. Say, it doesn't matter. He's the president of Nigeria. It gives you the answer. All right. But if you give it context on what you're trying to look for, maybe it can even give you VDM, right? Because some people consider VDM president. So maybe context would allow it to understand exactly what you're trying to achieve. So that's what context is. So when you put a prompt, what you are basically giving LLM is context. Either it is what is this or what is this. So the more information you give it, the better. So usually there should be a 5 component of any prompt, I see a lot of people do videos about it. Why your CV is not getting noticed. Use these 7 prompts. The simple rule, right, of all of them is number one, there is the system prompt. Who exactly do you want it to think like? Who exactly do you want it to, what do you expect it to, what perspective do you want it to look through? It might not be an example like, okay, think you are a support skinny con or something. It might be something else, right? What do you want it to perceive that information or that question you're asking us, right? Then the context, where am I getting it from, right? Where am I getting it from? User instruction, then tell it exactly what you want it to do, and then tell it how you want the output, right? Most people don't define how they want the output. For me, I do a lot of work with AI. I'll show you an example. The chat, DeepSeek. Nope, DeepSeek. Okay, so you see, I specifically told it I want it in 3 columns. But let's go to another, looking for examples. Right, so you can basically tell it, this is how I want my results to look, or to look like, ideally, at the end of the day. It's just you specifying. Then you can give it few examples, depending on what you're trying to do. Few examples of what you expect it to do. At the end of the day, this is the idea. Right? I gave an example of what strategy some of these people use, and because of time, I'll also skip through it. If you have questions, I will definitely answer. Now, let me go into agentic. So when you hear, of course, when we just finished talking about RAG, and then I said, oh, okay, it's you giving context to it so that I can answer any questions about the company or about the data that you've already given to it. So you give it a lot of data, and then on the end user side, if they think of it like you are giving it a, yeah, I'll build we'll build a simple RAG system together in class. So I'll show you how it works. Think of it like you give it a PDF of a book, right? And then if anybody asks any question whatsoever about, as long as the book has a context, it will answer it. Say, according to the book, I think you should do this. Based on this, you should do this, right? That book can basically instruct the persons on their life, right? So that's what RAG system is. However, agentic system is a bit different. Agentic system takes it up a notch. So agentic systems have the capability to take actions. They have access to tools, so they don't just give you answer, they can plan and then take actions. For example, say you tell an agent to say, okay, you go to LinkedIn, search for all the jobs that have product management, look at the job role. After looking at the job role or JD, the job description, take my CV and improve it to fit that job description. After that, apply on my behalf, right? That is something that an agentic system can do. So before taking that action, it plans it, and then it looks at all the tools you need. For example, you need access to LinkedIn, it needs access to your CV and all of that. Then it asks you for those things. Once you give it, it can actually proceed to take those actions on behalf of you. That's just the difference between agentic system and RAG system. So RAG system, on the other hand, is just a retrieval system. It gives you answer based on the context you have given it. But agentic system takes it up a notch. It doesn't just give you an answer, it actually takes actions for you, right? So again, what's the process? It perceives, it plans, it acts, it observes, it repeats that, or stop. If you tell it that, okay, stop when this happens, it stops. And then if that does not happen, it repeats the entire process again, right? So again, this is the idea of agentic AI. That's the difference between agent and RAG, right? Again, this first week would be a lot of introductions, then would probably go into much. So I need you to understand the differences before when we start talking about these things, so it doesn't get lost. All right. What is MCP? Maybe you are with your engineers and they are talking about MCP. Don't be confused, right? MCP literally is like, think of it as your USB. That's the best way I explain. Like your USB Type C cable, right? It can charge an Android phone. It can charge you can charge your headset. It can charge your camera. It can charge anything, right? It's a universal uh, cord that helps you. So MCP, we have not spoken about API, so I'll talk about MCP again. But let me just give you context, right? MCP is a new protocol. The way we have API or yes, API as a protocol before, HTTP as a protocol before, where companies can create APIs that can communicate to each other because they understand each other. It's a universal language. I can send a post request, a get request, and that company understands that get means get data, post means the same way for AI. MCP is that standard that allows people to actually create source and all of that. That's just all you need to know. So if you hear MCP, it's not necessarily a strange word. It's just like a standard that allows people to work in AI, that allows AI systems to basically communicate. As simple as that. There's a slight difference between MCP and A2A. They look similar. In fact, I used to think they are the same. A2A, on the other hand, is agent to agent, while MCP is agent to tool. So think of, I've explained what an agent does to you, but I also told you that uh, when you give an agent, the agent needs access to tools. Tools could be LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn have an MCP, which allows you to take any action on LinkedIn. For example, make a post, add a friend, disconnect with friends, chat, and all of that. That MCP layer is given to an agent, and an agent can then use that to basically take actions that you want it to take. I know this is getting complex, but you understand why I am teaching this a bit further. An MCP has three parts. It has server, which is the most important part. It has the client, and then it has the host. The host is basically where this MCP will basically interact with your agent. And then MCP client is basically that format. It's just like when you say client side, you mean front end, right? That format that is like an interface. You understand why this is very important very soon. And then the server itself is the one that exposes the tools. Now, A2A was developed by Google. The protocol allows two agents to talk to themselves. An agent, smart guy, who can take actions on your behalf, to talk to another agent who can also take actions on your behalf. That's just what it is. It's not as popular as MCP because people don't want their agent to talk to another agent. They want their agent to talk to tools. They want their agent to be smart enough to take actions for them. For example, there was a time I used to subscribe to this Google's news, right? It just sends me news about companies that were funded and all of that every day, but it was getting too much. So what I did is I created a simple automation that would actually get me all those data, sieve out the ones I don't want, specifically those that meet my criteria, and then send that to me. So it reduced the number of emails I get to just one, put all those news summary, and then I can click to read the detailed of what I want to read later. Right? That's a simple agentic flow that actually use multiple tools actually. It checks online, scrape the internet for news, and then use my email agent to send me an email every morning. Right? So which is the way this ideally works. All right. So what's the difference between MCP and A2N? MCP communicates to tools. That's the major difference. And then A2A communicates to agents. So if your developers or anybody saying MCP and this person saying A2A, that's just different. Then the analogy is a bit different. So this is technical, except for those that are computer science people here. All right, this is initiated by AI models, and then this can be initiated by an agent. So one agent is talking to the other. Users interact with the AI host while agents can pause for human inputs. When agent pauses for human inputs, we call it human handover. And why do we do this? We do this because of something we call guardrails. Guardrails are positions we put in our agents because we don't want AI to destroy the world, right? So while building AI, we had some clause that allows you to always require human intervention at some certain places. So when you hear guardrails, that's basically what it means. You're adding guards at some point of the executions, right? This was led by Anthropic, as I said, and this was led by Google, right? And when do you use this? When you want to use a tool, it could be your email, you want to send WhatsApp messages, you want to give it access to be able to send WhatsApp message on behalf of you, you want to be able to do anything on behalf of you, then you think of MCP. But agent to agent, this you probably never need, but you just need to learn about it. All right. One last thing. This one you probably read about it. One last thing I wanted to discuss so that we can go into the business of tomorrow, into business tomorrow. So there is always one decision we have to make as product managers almost every time. Do we build or buy? Usually, the decision is not ours to make, but they are always reaching out to us for suggestion. My company just acquired a new company few weeks back, right? It was announced and on LinkedIn and all that. Before they acquired, it took like a year, right? And that 1 year, what was happening internally is they were discussing what's their offering, how does this, right? So what are the things that you do to actually decide if you want to buy a solution or just build it internally? The first one is differentiation. Is especially when it comes to AI, right? Some people will say, instead of building the AI system, why not just pay for it, right? Anthropic already has ChatGPT. Why are we training our own model, right? If you look at the cost and all of that, you probably want to say, okay, buy. If you look at the speed to market, my competitors already building, are they choosing to probably buy instead, right? That can also affect. Then data sensitivity. Our data, is this something that can be shared? There's something we call PII. It's called personal identifiable data. These are data. If you check my ChatGPT or all these platforms I use for work, most of them I put data that are irrelevant. I mean, phone numbers. I change phone numbers, changed emails, so that the actual phone numbers and emails don't go there. It's just standard practice, right? So this ideally is a process to clean up your data. So if PII data is very sensitive to you, then going to a third-party app means that you are actually taking that data to the third party. To give you an example, so which means instead of buying, you probably want to build. Because when you buy, there are a lot of movement of data everywhere, and you want to ensure that that data does not leak out. Because in countries like Saudi Arabia, you can be fined in millions when data leak occurs, right? And the maintenance burden as well. Do I have the team to actually get this done? And this is not just for AI. I mean, for every single product that you want to build, some features you want to build it. And let me give you an example. When OPay decided to actually go into lending, OPay could have built the lending part of their product into OPay, just like Kuda. Kuda added it as a feature on their system, and they called it overdraft, right? But OPay decided, nope, we're not doing that. Instead, we are going to buy other company. Then OPay bought Okash and His Money, and then they adapted it to their product. The same thing that Paystack is doing now. Paystack already has like a very solid landscape. However, they wanted to build a new product called Zap, right? That would compete with the likes of OPay, Kuda, and all of that. However, it means that they need license. They need to go and get license. They need to go and do all those things. So instead, they decided, instead of getting license and stressing ourselves to employ engineers and build a blah, 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 why not just buy a microfinance? Microfinance already has a license. So they took another microfinance, bought the microfinance, and adapted the license of the microfinance to Paystack's ecosystem or portfolio. So again, the decision of whether to buy or build usually rests on the CEO, but a lot of time they require the data or the validation from you. So these are the things that you think of before deciding if to buy or not, right? So these are some of the things that you use in actually defining if the quality of AI is good enough or not. Do we have any questions so far? If you have questions, please